right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of the Disreputable Podcast. My sidekick, Brandon, isn't with me today, but I have my friend, Rick Jones. Rick is a pilot. He's a neighbor. He's a friend from church, and he and I have had some conversations over the years about just the life lessons from the cockpit. And he's got a great story to tell. But before I get into it too far with Rick, I want to say thank you for listening. And if you're enjoying these, share them. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or YouTube or the various. I think we're on Spotify, are we not, Abe? We're on Spotify. And well, you already know, whatever platform you're watching us on. Feel free to share it with somebody you know, because we try to keep it fresh and we try to have different perspectives on some of these topics, and that's why you're here, Rick. Appreciate your dad. Your dad was a pilot.
Yeah, my dad was a pilot for 35 years for Alaska Airlines, and both my grandfathers were pilots. One flew for Pan Am, uncle with TWA, sister was a pilot.
So this is a family business.
Yeah, It's boring conversations around the dinner table at Thanksgiving because we all do the same
variety,
thing.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear about it.
And you worked for Alaska for years, and now you're in the private sector.
Yes. Yep.
Flying a corporate jet.
Yep, I fly for a family.
Yeah, and you seem to love that.
I do.
Yeah, it gives you a little freedom, and that's one of the. I started taking lessons, maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago, I guess. COVID kind of shut me down and prolonged the process because for a while I couldn't get up and get lessons. But I love being up in the air. And there's so many great metaphors for life in flying.
There are.
Yeah,
there are a lot.
And even when I've done this in a sermon before, but even as a passenger, if you're along, one of the first instructions you get is put your own mask on.
Yeah.
Talk about that. What's the logic behind that?
Don your own mask.
For those of us sitting in the back.
Right. Other than like somebody's name is the only time in the English language we use the word don, probably, right? But you don your own mask first. And yeah, that's right. It sounds silly, but
yeah.
But when you're flying at 30-some thousand feet, there isn't much breathable oxygen up there, and so the cabin altitude, the cabin is pressurized on the planes, and so the air in there is, if you're at the equivalent of about 6,000 to 8,000 feet, so it's breathable, and you can live. But if there's some sort of a loss of pressure and pressurization, you need oxygen to live, and
right.
You're going to lose it. And so they say don your own mask first, and people kind of giggle at that. And I think I used to giggle at that a little bit. But if you don't have yours on, you can't help anybody else.
Right.
If you can't breathe, you can't help your child or your friend or your
right.
parent on board. You can't help them if you don't put your own on first. And I think a lot of people try to be not be selfish and
right.
be givers or whatever. Like, oh no, I'm going to put it on my child first.
Oh, put my kids first.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Your child might not have a parent
right.
afterwards, and so get yours on, and then help the rest of the people. And
this is something that I say to when people come in for pre-marriage counseling, because we're so child-centric, right? That we're like, oh, the kids come first. Well, no, like this little unit, this is how you sustain the kids. Take care of yourselves first. Do a little self-care, and if mom and dad have a good soul life, it's going to help the kids. But if mom and dad are running ragged and on empty, then it's going to affect the kids. Kids are acting out on what's going on in the house.
Sure. Well, and I'll see like even people that give a lot of advice. A lot of times people that are reaching out and trying to help, or even people, that are maybe volunteering a lot,
right.
are distracting away from maybe a problem at home or a problem in their own life.
Yes.
It's easy to go out and try to fix someone else. It's hard to fix your own deal. Like we've all seen people that want to give you relationship advice and then look at the fire
right.
that's happening at their house,
So this is instruction number 1. When you're watching this, and we're talking about being in the cockpit as a metaphor for running your life. So when you're watching this, don't diagnose your ex-husband. Don't be this. Put on. Let's all put on. I'm going to listen for me. You listen for you, and this will be our way of putting our own mask on first. So you said something to me a couple of days ago that really was one of the reasons you're here today. Because you said that planes. I'm trying to think of exactly how you said it. Are most comfortable in flight.
Yes. Yeah.
They're built to fly. They're not built for Earth. Talk about that, because I think that's a great metaphor for the human existence.
Yeah, it is. Airplanes are built. They're designed and engineered to be most comfortable in flight. So when they're sitting on the ground at the gate, for instance, when you're getting in, they look great, but they're under more stress there structurally than they are actually.
Even if they're not moving.
Correct. Than while they're flying. They're built for that. They're built to have the air flowing past the wings and to have the engines working, thrust going through the engines. Engines don't like being stopped. We actually have a lot of mechanical issues on airplanes if they've sat for a while. You think, oh, it's sitting, it's resting. No, you go fire the thing up, and you might have a list of things. They like to keep going. They like to be working. They like to be in their element, and they like to be the most relaxed in the air. And I even think about birds. You think of birds, they're beautiful flying around. They're gorgeous in the air and they're so graceful. But most of them, they get on the ground. Yes. They have to kind of hop. They can't walk. They're not built for that. They're built for that.
Yeah, you would think that they'd be more vulnerable up there, but a bird's more vulnerable down here.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's not using, and I like that picture, because so many times the message the world is giving us is to be careful. Be careful, be careful. So we pull back and we're not doing what we were designed to do.
Right.
I think there are a lot of people, this is a dean's supposal, but I think there are a lot of people that get lost in addiction because they didn't have the guts to do what they were designed to do. They didn't go all in on their gifts and abilities. And
I think that's true. I actually saw something on YouTube the other day. Simon Sayek, I forget his name for sure, but he was talking about that and dopamine. Really, a lot of people get into addictions, like you said.
Right.
They're chasing after that hit of dopamine, where, if you can, ideally in your world, you're gonna choose what's going to excite you, complete you, make you feel fulfilled. Right. Whether it's flying or leading people like you do. Yeah. Or whatever it is, if you can choose something and have a passion for it and feel good about it, like an airplane and comfortable in flight, I'm comfortable flying and doing what I'm doing or whatever, and it makes I feel like if you can do that and choose a passion and go after it, it helps the rest of your life too.
It does. That's why I think they say if you could do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
But I can remember I was on a flight from Dallas, and I happened to be sitting next to a pilot who was dead heading back to Seattle. And we got in this storm, and I'm telling you, bro, it felt like those wings were just bouncing. Mm-hmm. And the guy, I didn't even say anything, but he turned to me and says, "It's built for this."
Yeah.
And I believe humans are built for more than just like getting in the house and locking down after 5 o'clock. This whole 9 to 5, come home at 5, have a drink and don't go out until Monday morning.
Yeah.
That kind of existence, I don't think we're built for more stress than that.
Exactly. It's not fulfilling. It might be relaxing at the time, but I think long term it's not fulfilling. And
talk about the idea of fly the jet. You said that to me once. Fly the jet. When I say fly the jet, what does that mean to you in the cockpit when you're talking to the co-pilot, and that phrase is said? What's being transmitted?
Yeah, we have that saying. An expanded version of that is aviate, navigate, communicate, kind of in that order.
Aviate, navigate, communicate. Okay, walk me through that.
Aviate basically is, and I think about these every year when I'm in the simulator and they're throwing everything at you and all these emergencies. But aviate is fly the plane. All these things are going on. You might be near. Things might be happening. There might be a galley fire in the back or a problem with a passenger or something else. But fly the plane. You got to fly the plane. Someone has to fly the plane.
That's your
fly
assignment.
the plane. That's the most important thing. Are the wings level? Am I going the right direction? Fly the plane.
Aviate. That's the aviate.
Aviate. And then navigate. Watch out. Are you going to hit any hills? Or is there any
obstacles?
Obstacles, weather, and getting towards your destination.
Because I mean, you can have some stuff happening in the back.
Yeah.
But the biggest danger, generally speaking, is in front of you.
Right. Yeah. But the biggest thing is to fly the plane first. There's a saying really with Boeings and how Boeing airplanes are built. Boeing airplanes historically were designed by pilots instead of so much engineers. They're designed by pilots and then engineers build them. And there's all these different systems, all these different potential distractions, but those are important. But the most important thing is really hand on the yoke and power lever, fly the thing first. And then let's add stuff on. And if things are going south on you, you can turn the stuff off, get your hands on the plane, feel it, fly the plane.
Yeah.
Get rid of your distractions.
How do you translate that to the people that are watching or listening today? I mean, because life has all this stimulus out here.
Yeah. Well, we have relationship issues, maybe with somebody, boss issue, work issue, not connecting with people for some reason, maybe financial issues, bill pay, that kind of thing. But get centered first.
Yes.
You have to and it's hard, but get centered first. It's like we have a thing too. I think I've mentioned to people I've flown with before. Like if we have an engine failure or an engine fire. Fly the plane, get the plane.
Yeah.
And like in life, fly the plane. Those things are still going to be there.
Right.
The engine fire is still going to be there.
Yeah.
Your problems will still be there. Sure. Take care of yourself. Get centered first, and then have a better foundation to work on those things, or to address those things, or to absorb those things, whatever they are, whatever.
Because if you get obsessed with let me give you a scenario. You lose an engine.
Yeah.
Okay. If you obsess about what's going on that wing there. Right. You can make a bigger mistake. Is that?
It is, yeah. Some people will fixate so much on the problem, and that's important to a degree. But I think it's more important to focus on what do I still have.
Yes, that's good. That's a great metaphor, because sometimes you lose a child. Your spouse says, "I want out," and we get so obsessed with what we're losing, we don't know what we have left.
Right. And we'll have that in our checklist too. You'll go through something, and at the end it'll be like, hey, be careful, but you still have this stuff.
This is working, and this is working, and this is working.
Yeah. You're not going to have this and this and this. Okay, I'm not going to have that.
What was the third one? Aviate, navigate,
and communicate.
Talk about that.
Oh, you'll see people who people who get in an emergency or some sort of an abnormal or an emergency in the cockpit, and first thing they want to do is get on the radio. Or they want to make a PA to the passengers. Hey, we got this going on. Or, talk to ATC. Hey, this, whatever. We have this issue, this, whatever, da-da-da. And they want to communicate it. And I think that's part of, turning stuff outward.
Right.
When it's most important, first of all, okay, you have this issue. Instead of spreading it out to the world, maybe talking to your friends, gossiping look at it first. Fix it. Keep your circle small.
Right.
And
talk about it with your co-pilot.
Talk about it with your co-pilot, and let's see what we can do to work it out or not.
Yeah, bro, I had this conversation with a dude, not 2 weeks ago, because this rupture happened between he and his wife. And he tells the kids on day 2. I'm like, bro, you don't even know what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
You don't even know, and you've widened the circle. Now the kids are in it, and it's now we've got drama. And by the way, you still have to navigate this thing with her.
Yeah, and now that's probably changed.
Yeah,
it's probably different now based on you communicating early rather than flying the plane and taking care of it and addressing it.
That is so good.
Mm-hmm. You've created a variable that wasn't there before.
That's a great way of saying it. When you're in a crisis, you want to limit the variables.
Yes.
But sometimes, here's another, and again, this is a marriage scenario, but what I've noticed is that sometimes people have a rupture in a relationship, okay? And the person that initiated the rupture, they made a mistake,
sure,
or whatever. They're not really sure if they want in or out, because they're doing a cost benefit analysis. Hey, I've got these kids, I've got this family, or whatever, and they're thinking it all through. But the minute you like take it public, they've already paid the price. Like, he cheated on me, she did this, whatever. So now they've paid the full freight, and you've helped them decide. Because part of what was keeping them in it was they hadn't paid the full freight yet. But because you communicated too soon, and you told, you called their mother-in-law, and you called the father-in-law, said she's this or he's that, they blew the whole thing up. And now there's not a decision to make. Man, I already paid the fare.
Right.
So I mean, now I have to rethink this through.
Yeah. Whatever that situation was, it just changed because of that. You just added different external pressures to it. And in the cockpit, if I'm outside doing other stuff, talking about it, things will be changing in here, and I'm at, and you gotta focus on it.
I had a pastor friend who used to say, pastoring a church is like trying to fix an airplane while you're in flight. That's not easy to do.
No. Yeah.
Because there's all these dynamics. There's people on board. There's, all this stuff. Talk about make a decision. When you say, because this is part of what your training is as a pilot, is somebody's got to make a decision, right?
Right.
Who's in charge? Who makes the call?
Right. Ultimately, it's a pilot in command. But with us, we have two pilots, and so it's a crew concept. But ultimately, the pilot in command. So whatever decision we come up with, whoever came up with it, or it's ultimately the pilot in command's decision, ultimate decision, responsibility for it. We'll see. Going back to our yearly training, simulator training, they give us engine fires, they'll give us gear failures, they'll give us pretty catastrophic things. And I have people ask me, like, hey, have you ever had an emergency? I'm like, yeah, I've had plenty of emergencies. In real life, I've lost 5 engines in real life.
Wow.
And the last one I lost completely blew up. It grenaded. It was a fire. It blew up on the wing. And people are like, oh, my gosh.
This is how long ago?
That was a while ago. That was in 03, 04.
Okay.
And people are like, they're taken aback by it because it sounds like a big thing, and it is a big thing. However, it's an easy decision because guess what? I don't have that engine anymore. And I know what to do. We practice those things all the time. If there's an engine fire, engine failure, I know what to do. We know what to do. It's obviously not a good thing, but the decision-making process is fairly relaxing because it's been made. We lost it.
Life.
It's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's like the sink is running over in your house. It's easy. You shut off the water. There you go. But you got a little drip coming through the ceiling. Now, is that a big deal or not? That's where it gets tough. Is this a big deal or not?
Yes.
And not knowing what a normal problem is. Like maybe it's nothing, but maybe the roof's failing on you.
And I think that is a problem in regular life because if your spouse dies, it's sort of settled.
Yes, it's horrible, but you know what it is.
You know what it is.
And you know generally the steps of what happens then. And it's horrible. You know it's horrible, but
and there's some risk in it. I mean, if the engine blows up, you have to fly differently. Yes. You have to land in a different place, all of that. You're not going to get where you want it to go.
Yeah. But you're flying along. I've had fairly recently, you're flying along, and you hear a sound you haven't heard. There's some different sound going on.
Or there's a light going off.
And it had light going on. The other day was a sound, and it was part of a window seal, a rubber window seal flapping, and making an awkward sound. And that's something we don't train for. Right. But like, okay, let's sit back and let's figure this thing out.
And so how do you work through that? Is there a checklist?
No, for some things there isn't a checklist, and so you have to just talk about, like, how big of a thing is this? This is something that I think I mentioned to you. It's determining how big it is. If everything's an engine fire, then nothing's an engine fire.
Yeah.
And little things can be little things. They might be big things, but let's look at them and let's be reasonable about them. And don't sell the whole farm over something little that maybe is manageable. And let's don't panic over it.
I think this is huge because some people, it's like everything that happens to them. I don't know if it's just their cortisone, I mean, just like their ramped up personalities. But for some people, everything is an engine fire. It seems like it's just like, wow. I mean,
I've flown with those people. I've flown with ex-military people who have time in combat, and you get a little thing in flight, and all of a sudden they're pulling circuit breakers and this and that and checklists and whatever. I'm like, dude, stop, just relax a second. Like, oh, we got that. I'm like, I know it's an abnormal, but stop for a second. Let's figure out what it is. Let's talk about it. Slide your seat back. Let's talk about it for a second.
What do you mean slide your seat back?
Well, let's not get all hands on and trying to like solve everything right now.
Flipping switches.
Fix, solve. Let's assess for a second, because we can assess this one.
Do you literally slide your seat back?
In my mind,
so you're taking in more. I think this is huge, because what I try to tell people when they're going through crisis is like, hey, start listening to podcasts. I mean, start reading a book. Go see a counselor. Like, take in more data.
Yeah. Yep.
Before you're like putting the parachute on.
Sure. Yeah, and it helps to have someone with you. Like, I have a co-pilot, so one of us can get more immersed in the problem, but we can't both be.
Right.
And so someone needs to slide it back, fly the jet.
Right.
You handle the problem. My normal scan of the cockpit is gonna get bigger now, so I can handle some of your duties. You figure out the problem for us. So let's talk about it. But what you get immersed in it, or I will, and then I need you to slide your seat back and look at it, and let's see how big of a problem it is. And then once you figure it out, and have a good idea of how big of a problem it is or not, make a decision. Make a decision and go with that decision. It might not be the perfect decision, but you can't, like, the other day we had to deviate. We weren't going to make it to our destination. We had a little light come on. It was an abnormal situation. It wasn't clear cut what to do. So we decided where we were going to be going into heavy weather, a lot of ice and snow, and it was going to be pretty miserable already. But now we have this issue. So we decided, let's not go into that weather with this. Let's go somewhere else. And so then it was a decision of where we're going to go. Because you want to go to a safe place with good weather to land. Also, where there could be some maintenance to help us out.
Sure.
But there's a bunch of those places, so we had to pick one. And you can't just like, oh, let's go to Omaha, where we end up going. Oh, maybe we can dive down to Wichita. Maybe we can go over to Lincoln. Maybe whatever. Like, oh, hey, this looks good. You got to float around. You got to put it in ink. At one point, you got to decide it. Now, again, that might change, but don't just be floating around. Make the decision on the thing. And there's a certain relaxation, even though you can sit back later. Well, maybe it would have been better to go here, or maybe here, or whatever. But there's a certain relaxation and focus if you can make a decision to go to that place, and then you can just put your resources into that.
So good. I love it. And I hope you're enjoying this. You should be thinking right now about some people you could send it to. But I want to make sure I get through all of the things that I remember you talking about. You and I had a talk one time, and you were talking about this idea of, like, at some point to really take off, you got to stick your neck out. And one of the hardest lessons for me, when you're in control, like, I've got this gal over here who's trying to teach me how to do it, is like when you're on the runway and she says go, I mean, it's got to be full throttle. Because my tendency, I'm on a little Cessna 172, it's got this little thing. It's not like a big airplane thing, but you got to push it in. So I'm trying to, like in a car, you want to be kind of light off the line. You don't want to pop it, or whatever. It's not so in a plane, because you're trying to get air.
Right.
And you have to commit. That's kind of what it's about when you say stick your neck out, right?
It is, yeah. I remember when I was 16 and I was going to solo for the first time, fly by myself for the first time. I think I just got my driver's license, and I'm going to solo for the first time. And I was nervous about it. I didn't sleep well the night before. I'm going up by myself. I've flown a bunch, but this was my first time by myself. And there's no one to help you out when you're gonna fly solo for the first time. And I was nervous. And I remember adding the power. I was just sweaty palms, pushing the power in, like you said, all the way. And then there got to be the point where I was taking off. There's no more runway left. I was committed. And the strangest thing happened to me was I felt a peace, because now it wasn't like all these wondering about things. Like, well, I have to go now. I have to go now. I can focus on what I'm going to do. I'm going to get around the pattern and come back and land. And making that commitment brings a lot of peace. nowadays when we fly the jet, we have a lot of metal around us, a lot of fuel, people on board, and we have that point where we have to commit. We add the power, and we get to a certain speed depending on the runway and the day and the conditions, where the speed's called V1. It's our go no go speed.
Right.
Before that, anything happens, we can abort the takeoff and we can just stop and still be where we are and safe. After that speed, V1, which we reach when we're still on the runway, but once we hit that speed, we can't stop anymore. We can't stop and have a safe braking distance.
Right.
And so we have to go. And so even though you're still on the runway at V1, you have to make the commitment and you can't stop. But your tendency sometimes is to still stop. And so we have a procedure where at V1, we do it, I believe every airline does it also. We take our hands off the power levers.
Because to throttle back would be destruction.
Yes. But that would be your natural tendency to throttle back.
Yeah.
So we eliminate that. We say this isn't an option anymore. So we put both hands on the yoke.
I love it.
And we have them up there. So if something happens, we're on the yoke and we're flying the thing.
Right.
And we can't just we can't just have a mulligan on this. We're going.
Yeah, that's so good. I had a conversation once with this guy. He was sort of not married to this gal, and then she gets pregnant, and he's still talking as if he's got all these options, you know? And I was saying, bro, you're a dad now. Mm-hmm. It's time. You're like, it's full throttle now.
Yeah.
We're not dinking around. Now you have a passenger.
Sure.
Back there, and you're not crashing or whatever. Now we're crashing 3 people. Mm-hmm. And I think some people just never, I don't know, it's fear or like bad experiences, that kind of sticking your neck out thing, that's hard to do.
It is. I mean, we all run into all these people with all these ideas. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back and get my master's. Are you? I'm going to do this. We're going to go
At some point, you got to put power to it.
We're going to go to Europe now. We're going to go whatever, and then you realize you see these people again in a year or two, and they haven't done these things. Europe. And we're all guilty of this.
And they didn't get their masters.
We're all guilty of this. Or maybe I know as a musician also, I have so many friends who have. You have a guitar, you have a piano, you have a drum kit, and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to get a band, I'm going to do this, or whatever. And 98% of them don't, but they're gonna someday. But and that's fine, and that's great. It's a fun hobby, but you're either gonna do it or you're not. Right. And there's a point where you need to either, okay, I'm going to commit, I'm going to sign up some studio time and record this song, or I'm actually going to put out an ad in Craigslist and get in a band, and I'm going to sign up for that master's program, or I'm not. But you have to add the power and commit.
Your band is called what?
Unfortunate Bangs.
Yeah.
It's an 80s hair reference.
But you guys just did a cover of a Tom Petty song. But you were telling me at some point you just had to call the studio, book the time.
Yeah.
That's your way of throttle in.
Yes, yeah.
We're paying for the studio time.
Right.
We're going to play this thing, and we're going to release this thing, and it's going to happen.
And it was a song that we've talked about, and we honestly hadn't ever practiced together, and that created so much stress with my bandmates.
All right.
But it was fun, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a raw sound, just a real sound, like someone just decided to play this song, and so I set it up, and I have I have at least one bandmate who's very particular and defined, and he's awesome. I love him for it. We need that to balance me out, but it wasn't his normal comfort zone. It turned out great. It was wonderful, but we had to book the day, go do it. People were practicing on their own. We came in, and however prepared you were or not, and it's gonna be what it is today, and we're gonna record it, and it was really fun.
I think I've mentioned to you, Rick, but there's a couple of books in this topic that I love. Number one is by a guy named Stephen Pressfield. It's called The War of Art, and that it's about the war inside all of us that holds us back from putting our art out there. You got to write it. It's not the art of war; it's the war of art, and that resistance that's inside of everybody. Like, oh, the sermon isn't ready, the song isn't ready, the podcast isn't ready. It's not perfect. Right. At some point, you have to. The only way to overcome resistance is to do it, and put it out imperfectly. And the other guy is Seth Godin, because he talks a lot about just ship it, write the book, ship it. You could edit forever.
True.
You know, and I've written 3 or 4, maybe 5 books now. And at some point, you know, it's just like, yeah, this isn't perfection. I'm always learning about different things, and I could change it every day. But I'm going to put this out and let the world kind of thumbs up or thumbs down.
I could see that in art. Right now I'm just thinking about that in art, like Van Gogh or whatever. At a certain point, there's no more brush strokes. That was enough brush strokes. I have to hang it and put it on the wall, put it in the frame at a certain point. And when is that point? But being comfortable with that and being comfortable with your art to be able to do that. And that's what we did with our song, Unfortunate Bangs, American Girl, Spotify, all platforms.
Get it. Absolutely.
No, but at a point where you have to hit record, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's in the can now. You can go do other ones, but that one's in the can.
Let's wrap it up with this, because I want to get back to the beginning. And at some point, if you're the pilot, the first decision is you got to center that plane on the runway, and when you do that, you have to have chosen a destination.
You do.
So talk about this in closing. How do you choose a destination, and what if you don't get to that destination? Because a lot of people had an idea at 16 who they wanted to be, but they didn't really. I mean, it was sort of fuzzy, you know.
Right.
And maybe that was part of the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, talk about choosing a destination.
Well, yeah, the biggest thing is really locking in a destination. Like, so this is what I want to do. This is the place where I want to go. And so we choose a destination, and so we put all of our time and resources and knowledge into that. And so we look at the destination. We look at is it capable of handling our type of airplane?
So
does it have the facilities for us? Weather.
So if you're going to Park City, Utah,
right?
What do you do when you choose that destination?
Yeah, well, around there, yeah, we go in there quite a bit. We'll go to Salt Lake usually. There's Heber City. We're going to Salt Lake if we're going to Park City. But we look at how the weather is. What the facilities are like. They have fuel for us. Do they have maintenance if we need it? We look at those sort of things. Then we look at, is the weather okay for us to go there? Is it a destination we can reach with the fuel we can carry on board? Is our airplane equipped to go in there based on whatever the navigational needs to go in there? Right. Is my crew rested and ready? You got to look at just, you're eliminating variables.
Right.
But then we're focusing on we're going to go there. We're going to go there. And so it's not like let's go to Utah, or let's go to somewhere around the Wasatch Mountains or the Rockies or whatever. We're going to there. It's like aim small, miss small, right? We're going to Salt Lake, and so. Everything we do is to see if we can go there. Then once we decide that everything lines up, we can't be responsible for every variable that's going to come along later. Right. But we know that we're focused on that destination, that goal, and
that helps you get smarter.
Yes.
If it's just like we'd like to be on the West Coast, well, I mean that's Seattle or San Diego. Those are two totally different enterprises.
Right. Then you end up going to none of them.
Right.
Yeah. But yes, you focus on one, go towards it, and then. Sometimes you get there, you get close, and it doesn't work out for some reason. There's a weather issue. Maybe a plane is disabled on the runway. Ice and snow, thunderstorm camped out over the top of it. You can't get in, and so you have to go somewhere else. And so we will have an alternate, and so we'll have an alternate too. Which we try not to distract ourselves with the alternate too much. We check it out prior, but really we're going to that spot until we can't. Like, it's not like, hey, maybe we'll go here or here. It's like, we're going there.
I like that because who you end up being at 53, for instance, I'm 53. I know I only look 23, but who you end up being at 53 is not exactly who you thought you were going to be at 18, right?
Right, yeah.
But if you have, Napoleon Hill in the book Think and Grow Rich says that life or the universe, however they phrase it, responds to definite plans. If a man is definite and says, I won't be deterred, I'm going to be a millionaire, I won't be deterred, I'm going to be a great father, somehow the Holy Spirit helps in that process.
It really does.
Yeah.
My wife, Sophie, she talks about, I might flip-flop this, energy flows where energy goes. So basically, let's focus on it. Let's put words to it. Let's write it down. Right. Let's focus on that, and let's focus our energy, and things will flow in that direction for us by determining it, by speaking it, by telling a friend, by taking a step forward, taking that first step.
Right.
And then the energy will flow to that spot, that defined spot that you're trying to go to.
And I know a lot of Jesus people, I mean, obviously I pastor a church, a lot of Jesus people are uncomfortable with those kinds of ideas. But it was a scripture that said that God wanted to give you the desires of your heart. I think a lot of times people don't even know their own heart. So how is God? God works in your plans, right?
Right.
God, how can God bless a plan that hasn't been made yet?
That's true.
You have to have a definitive moment, and everybody moves in the direction of their dominant thought,
Mm-hmm. I try to, something that helps me, and I think I learned this from you, was I try to just, instead of praying for this, hey, I want this, God give me this, God do this, God, repair this relationship. Instead, it's just, hey, show me your will.
Yeah.
Show me your will. And then I feel like, from having my brain set up and the heart set up in that way, hey, show me your will, I feel like I'm able to look at life,
that's good.
and to all of a sudden I will know what those things are that maybe should be important in the direction I should be led, rather than like, hey, send me here, send me here, send me here. Like, is that really where God wants me to go?
Right,
I'm kind of forcing it. Maybe I'm not gonna look at the signs along the way, but show me where, and then be receptive of it, and then make sure that's your destination.
Well, we're almost out of time. Rick, what do you want these people to know? Why is this metaphor helpful to you, and what do you want them to take away?
I think, well, with me, it's just I've had many life experiences, good and bad or whatever, and some of these things that, like we went over today, that's just kind of scratching the surface of it. But things that I've learned at work and I've used as metaphors, I see, going to OURChurch 253, and I see that that you give us these tips and metaphors. You speak with so many metaphors, and that's so helpful, and it relates to our life, and so. I like to just be able to use my knowledge. I'm not quite 53, but I'm 51, and use some of the experiences I have, the knowledge I have, and maybe some of those metaphors can be helpful. I know it's helpful to me, and so I'd like to just be able to communicate a little bit.
It's a great picture, and I thank you for giving us time, and thank you for watching. One more time, I want to say, share this with somebody. Because that picture of your life, the destination, what you want, moving in that, handling the crisis as it comes, I think this will be helpful. So blessings to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.